Remember when we were kids, we used to pretend. We could pretend we were a superhero. I'm Batman, look at me. Could we solve crimes? You know, you wouldn't trust a kid like with an important crime, maybe a little, is the crayon missing? Where's that, Timmy? And he'll find it. He'll find it for you, so pretending's fun. I love to do it still today, and that's what OM System does. They pretend to be in business, and who's to blame them? There's nothing wrong with it. It's fun, isn't it? To pretend to be whatever you want. They pretend, hey, we're a camera company still. We totally make cameras. I don't mind it. They had a meeting recently about it. All right, fellas, thanks for coming in today. We got an important meeting. We're totally at work right now in our warehouse that exists, and we should probably release a camera. Isn't it? It's February. It's about that time. We're totally a camera company, so what do you got? You got something there, Johnson? Boss, we have 7 employees. What could we possibly have around here? 4 of them are making sushi right now. I can hear them. The rolls, the crunching of the nori sheets. That one umbrella salesman you hired, I don't know what his purpose is, but we have nothing on the horizon. I don't know what to do here. Okay, don't panic. Johnson, we're going to be fine here, the sushi people. If you can roll a sushi, you can roll a lens. Can't you? Come on, you got to have something. We can update something. The umbrella guy, that's our weather sealing guy. He can make something. Can't he? Sir, we've tried. He's been putting umbrellas in the lenses. It's just vignettes. It actually took our weather sealing rating down a couple notches, actually. It's like really bad stuff. I don't know what his thing is here. How much do you pay him? Why does he make more than me? I don't understand what we're doing. Johnson, relax. I know it's hard. Life is hard when you have a real job at a real factory that we're in. Like, we have to go to work every day and we're working hard and it builds up inside, and sometimes you don't know if you can continue on, and I get it, it's hard. You work so much and then you make your stuff and you go home to your wife and she didn't even make you dinner. It's in the oven, but you have to do it yourself. You can push on. You got to find it in here. That's where you find it. What are you making? You have something, right? If I humored myself, I could probably put together some type of gripless camera. I could throw one of the umbrellas in a prime lens that we have in the factory. It'll increase the weight, the zoom. I've heard there is a rumored firmware that we could actually have it talk to the camera. We'll have to ask Sigma for that protocol because it's a Sigma lens. But the 100 to 400, we could sync stave with it or something. That's all we can really do. That's more than I was expecting, Johnson. I'm proud of you. You're getting a raise. How much is that umbrella guy making? I'm going to double it. Not double, like a bit more though. You're respected. Love you.
All I want is the perfect camera. All I want is the perfect camera.
So we have a lot to get to today. OM System has released the OM3 camera, a zoom lens with upgrades, and 2 primes with totally new cameras and lenses here. This is amazing technology. So first, let's talk about the OM3, a vintage camera. We're on the Canon C70, of course. 85mm 1.2. I don't know. OM3, vintage camera. My first annoyance, there's no grip. That hurts. I don't get this vintage look when it's not functional. Just add a grip. I know there's going to be third-party grips, but that extends it out. And then the shutter button placement, which should be following that extension out, it's like crooked finger disease waiting to happen. So it's like a backwards. I remember on the X-T4, I was like, nope, taking that off right away. But basically what you have is a company, OM System, that bought Olympus. They were an actual camera company, but now they're not progressing what they had. The knowledge is lost forever in caves, and they're not willing to bring it out. They hired some people, the umbrella guy, he was in there. So like they can improve the physical components, like, okay, we can weather seal this slightly better, and I don't know, man, firmware updates. They do have a IT guy that they hired from their phone company. So potentially good things about this camera are they have decent stabe, as we've seen. And the color science, I like Olympus color science. They might be class leading. They're right up there with Canon. I used to have the EM1 Mark III and the G9. And I was like, even though the G9 was much better on paper, better codecs, the 10-bit and all that, Olympus just looked better. It was just better color. So like now they have OM Cinema. I'll be honest with you, it's just gonna look better if you film in log and grade it yourself. That's the reality. All these little gimmick Fujifilm Sims type of thing, they don't look as good as log. Just give us LUTs to make your log look better, and then we're happier. Full dynamic range, everybody's happy. But these, they say you'll get the same highlight retention. I have my doubts, and I'd have to see it in person, but potentially you might have a Olympus film sim that leads everybody. It might be gimmick hell as well and just be like, what the hell is that? Like most camera companies have these little profiles and they're unusable. Nikon's one of the worst. Fuji has some touches, but like log looks better on Fuji anyway, so give me LUTs. But really what we're looking at is Olympus's old camera, the OM1, still being released because they don't go to work, they have no offices or employees, they're not advancing, there's no like research department, there's nothing new coming. It's just, what can we squeeze out of this and pretend we're still in business? They're buying plastic parts and metal from around the world, and then they put it together and it's like, it's the same sensor and processor, nothing is changing ever again. So like all the new things that they added are just like firmware and like useless stuff, like the color mode wheel. Utterly useless if you use log, which you're going to if you shoot video. The CP button, computational photography button, does nothing for video. All those little fancy things that Olympus can do, they can't do in video. You know how much Olympus hates video? The EM1 Mark III was released without phase detect for video. It had it in camera, you could use it for photos, and then eventually, I don't even know what spurred it on, but they turned it on for video. And then all of a sudden, you were the only Micro Four Thirds camera with phase detect autofocus, and it's like, well, holy shit, Leica lenses on that? What are we even doing here? So like you led the industry in my heart. But like now, it's worse than the EM1 III was. It only got worse. They still have all the same limitations, like HD 240 frames per second. You can't shoot in log, and it's 8-bit, and it's over sharpened and nasty. That hasn't changed. It's a huge crop. Like they're not improving anything they had. Also with the color, I found OM log was also over sharpened, and you need that for 10-bit. Flat looked amazing, like almost straight out of camera. You just have a tiny bit of contrast. You don't even have to. Looked great, but that's 8-bit, and it's still like that. You need log for 10-bit. You can't use any other color profile in 10 bits. That's bullshit. So what you have is a pricey camera, $2,000, roughly $100 more than my full frame ZVE1 that's lighter, by the way, about 13 grams lighter, my full frame setup. With some Zeiss lenses, still super light. 35 Miltoni 2.8, you joking? You have your 17 mil 1.0, we'll get to you. I don't get who you're even in the market for, like the ZF. A lot of people would rather have tiny worst grip in history, but at least you're full frame. I can't believe we're even pretending that OM System is in business releasing modern gear. Like it's just everything they had about 4 years ago in Olympus warehouse that they're renting and losing money every second on. A lot of broken windows in that warehouse. So that OM3 is a pretty much disaster camera. And when it comes to these lens updates, the 100 to 400, that's a good update. Like there's nothing wrong with what they did. You can now sync stabe. That was my biggest complaint. I've tried it. I had my EM1 III, tried the 100 to 400, and I was like, you can't use both optical and IBIS. They fight each other. It's all jerky as hell. Like, why isn't it sync stabe? They didn't change anything in this new lens. It's just they decided to turn that on. It's a firmware update to the lens, but you have to buy a new one. It's like, it's nice that it's finally in there, but you are still a zoom 6.3 at the long end. That's a 13.6 if it was a foot. Full frame background blur. It's a nightmare, but like whatever. You got some zoom, you can get some bullshit 8-bit footage. I wouldn't mind it. You're weather sealed now with the amazing IPX1. Wow, like you really went all out. I looked up the chart, I was like, that's the first one. That's like the lowest. Like if someone spit, if they just talk spit at you like old men do sometimes, they yell at you and say, uh-oh, okay, gotta return that. It doesn't deflect rain. Like it's certain angles of rain, it'll be okay, but if it's straight down, like it's not good. It's IPX1, it's almost nothing, but it sounds good on paper if you haven't seen the chart. You're just, ooh, IPX1. It's the first one. There's levels to that shit, and that's the lowest level. It's a basement level. The umbrella guy, he just put an umbrella in the lens. That's all it is. Not even a good one. Those things flap in the wind. It's 25 grams less weight, though. I appreciate that, but that brings it roughly equivalent with my Nikon 600mm prime 6.3. Like, what are we even doing? Your Micro Four Thirds, same weight as that, but you're a zoom with no Tonys. And ouch, man. And then when it comes to their other two primes, it's just like they added IPX1, which sounds like they removed weather sealing. If it's IPX1, the lowest rating now, what was it before? It had to have been better. It's probably IPX4 or something. So like the 17mm removes the manual clutch. It weighs 8 grams less, $50 more. The 25mm 1.8, an utterly trash lens. There's a Panasonic 25 1.7, and of course the Leica 25 1.4. Why are you even looking elsewhere? You can find that thing so cheap. The Leica. To think you're competing with that, and it's 20 grams more than it used to be and $130 more than it ever costed. Just buy a Leica, man. Do yourself a favor. Take a vacation. OM System is tarnishing the Olympus name at this point. They're kind of just, they bought the name and they're using it. Just like Kodak is no longer the Kodak that you remember. It's Chinac. And they're just using the name but not doing much with it. You can tarnish a legacy, man. Like I watch UFC and there's fighters that like you cannot deny what they did. But then they start losing and hanging on too long. And it's like, oh my God, stop doing this. Like BJ Penn for the longest time just kept losing. And then you see footage of him like fighting in bars and getting knocked out. And I'm like, oh my God, stop this. Stop drinking alcohol. Sometimes you did a bunch of cool stuff. But then like, what are you doing lately? That's what we remember. And OM System, let's not pretend you're actually, like I would love to see it. Something like the Mark II of something with new specs. And it's like, holy shit, they actually went to work and made something. They researched for a bit. It takes a while. Maybe they don't have as much money as other camera companies, but they actually care. And they're doing something. It's not just umbrellas in the camera to keep things from splashing from an alligator. Just shaking, dogs shaking the fur off. That's not what dogs do when they shake. It's, you're wet, bitch. Micro Four Thirds is somewhat viable in 2025. It could be if it was actually lighter, but like a lot of these things are just kind of fat bodies. Panasonic GH7 is twice the weight almost of my ZVE1. Your lenses like aren't that special. The Leica zooms, like those things are tanks. I don't know what your strength is, but like you should be faster than full frame. You should have advantages. You're lighter, but you're not cheaper, and you're often not lighter. So like I don't get some of the telephotos. It's like your 300mm Tony 4 prime is a bit heavier than my Nikon 600mm prime, with like less actual ton factor. So it's like, you're not saving a ton of weight. I don't know what you're saving, really. You're not saving money or weight. You're just losing image quality. And then, like, color science? Decent stabe? Rugged. Totally splash-proof. I don't know, man. Not seeing it. Not seeing the value proposition on this one, but you pretend. You go on pretending. OM System, I'm with you. Great name. Love the system in there. Don't just call it Om. That would be too spiritual and like calming. I love that there's an analytic system in that name. OM system. A nerd did that while not getting laid, by the way. That's what nerds do best. Thank you for your Bitcoin donations. Are any of these intriguing? Will you be buying them through my affiliate links? Of course. I'm trying to save you from yourself, but I will provide you the link to your own demise. I have no problem with that. I'll leave. Subscribe for my website.